y'all. Welcome to the Yappy Hour. We just wrapped episode 2, and Shay's got some thoughts on
I do.
our sharing.
Well, I just noticed that when we were talking about our journey towards being diagnosed, every single one of us, once we talked about, and then I was diagnosed, we all had this like energy around us. And I think so. My first experience with this was when so I graduated high school in 2012. We had like Facebook, I guess. Social media was not what it is today.
MySpace.
And
back in my day.
well, people did it. Life goes fast. It was different in 2012. You know that.
Yeah.
And people certainly didn't talk about stuff like this. And my sister would be like, I have this thing and everything overwhelms me and I breathe really and I'm like, yeah, you have anxiety. And she was like, what is anxiety? And I was like, look it up. And she was like, okay. So she looked up and she came into me and she's like, I have anxiety. And I was like, yeah, you do. And by labeling it, she's been able to learn about it and deal with it her whole life now. And it's become this thing that she's like, okay, my chest is tight. I'm overwhelmed. This is anxiety. I know what happens to my body and with my mind and what's going on with anxiety. So this is how to combat it. But I notice how it's called labeling in psychology. And we all have been able to, a diagnosis is like a label kind of, right? Mm-hmm. And so we've been able to label ourselves and then you can learn about yourself. Because if it doesn't have a name and you don't know what it is, then you're just like,
you don't know what you don't know. You only know what exists for everybody else.
Do you ever listen to any Jordan Peterson?
I do.
Okay. Do you remember? It was like he's told this story a lot, but this is more in his biblical series. He told the story. I believe it was like his son or a neighborhood boy or his nephew or something like that, where he was having this recurring dream, and this is the dragon. Like he was having the dream about he was like a knight or a dragon. He was fighting a dragon. But anyway, he tells this myth about like the boy and the dragon. And there's this boy comes home from school one day. There's a dragon in his kitchen, and the boy's like, "Mom, look, there's a dragon." And she's like, "What are you talking about? There's no dragon," and just kept dismissing it. Well, the boy was like, "Okay," and she was like, "Well, you have to ignore the dragon. There's no dragon in your closet. There's no dragon under the bed. There's no dragon. There's no monster, right?" And so he was like, "Okay, I guess I'll ignore the dragon." And the more he ignored the dragon, the bigger it got. And so finally, point being is that when the dragon was identified, when it was something that he was able to point at, to talk to call out, to address, the dragon started to shrink. Because eventually the dragon busted through the house, and the dad came home and was like, "What happened? There's a dragon that destroyed the house." And the boy was like, "Mom said there's no dragon. There's no dragon." It's like, there's obviously a dragon. So I'm sorry if I butchered that. But point being is like, you cannot heal or fix or mitigate something that you absolutely refuse to address. Just like you were talking about your ex earlier. That's like, it was just, neurodivergence spinning out of control. And you just kept insisting that there is no problem. The more you insist there is no problem, the more you will absolutely be ruined by that problem.
Yes. Wow. I haven't heard that story, but that is.
He tells it a lot. It's a really good one. I can send you the episode. Like in his very early, if you go back to his very early episodes on Spotify, it's his first biblical lecture series, which I absolutely love. And he tells that story a few times.
I love Jordan Peterson.
I've gotten more support from Jordan Peterson than I've gotten from any therapist, psychiatrist, or anyone that I've ever actually sought professional help from in my life. So, shout out to Jordan.
Seriously, he's settled some we who wrestle with God ask any mother of a terminally ill child how that battle's been, and I assure you it's actually been a very good read. I'm learning a lot about history, but it's like I
actually started doing the Jordan Peterson Academy.
The Academy.
Oh,
is it religious based?
No.
We're all
It's basically Yeah, so there, I mean, there's some courses on like religion and theology and stuff like that, but basically the Peterson Academy is like his clapback at like the absolute destruction of the intellectual institutions throughout the US and Canada. I mean, he was a professor as well, and in like Ivy League circles, and essentially just like the ideology that's permeated the schools, the lack of actual like classical liberal arts education, history and philosophy and literature and all that kind of stuff. And so basically it's like an online university. They're working on actually getting it accredited as an actual university, but it's like all the top professors in like psychiatrists and like physicists and just like all across different fields. And it was like 450. I got like early entry, but it was like $450. And so on my time, because I love to learn, actually learn things, I just go and like do the courses, and there's like tests and quizzes at the end of each section. And then, there's like books and stuff, but it's just like all on your time. There's like a community of other people that you can chat with. It just launched last October.
Yeah.
I think, but it's been super fun. So I miss school.
Some words I have never spoken.
I actually always think about how much more I enjoy school now.
Because it's a choice.
Like now, like I actually been thinking about my mom. I'm like, I actually would love to go to law school. Like, and based off of how my lawyers behaving,
for fun.
Based off how my lawyers behaving in this whole house lawsuit thing, which we won't get into right now, I literally would do a better job.
Yeah.
Without my degree.
I don't miss school. I miss learning.
Yeah.
I was like the girl that raised her hand. I'm like still friends with some of my professors from back in the day. Like if I can interact with interesting intellectual information, I am like, that's like one of the things that just lights me up and sparks joy. Like right there with music and comedy and arts. I just love just brain tickles.
I have to disrupt this for a moment because I just got a brain tickle about somebody that we all feel that joyous kind of love towards. And I just want to put this out into the universe for anybody that watches this. Just send this woman some love. An ADHDer, fully diagnosed and all that. Miss Alex Hall is in labor today with her first. Everybody out there, just send some love. But it brings me back to thinking about, because it's funny because she's in a relationship, but they have they're both neurodivergent, but very different ways. So you got a touch of autism on this side and you got ADHD on this side, and it works. So they're a whole different case study that we'll have to look into at some point. But something that her and I spoke about a long time ago, she said to me, she was like, I bet that if you study, this is when they like nicknamed me extra credit. She straight up said, I bet if you studied, you can go and take the bar exam. And I was like, dude, maybe I do.
Yeah.
But even also the way that like you process information and like just, I don't know, the pure enjoyment of just like thinking things are interesting before forcing me to take a test on it.
See,
that part.
I don't have that academically. Like, I'll be like, ooh, I'm gonna sit down and read, and I'll read like a half of a chapter, and I'm just exhausted, and I will pass out. Or like, I had to study for the insurance exam, and I was just like, I have never hated anything more than having to study as a 30-year-old adult. Like I hated it so much.
But you had to take the test to do to psychologically speaking, you had to take the test to make your money.
Yeah, exactly. So it wasn't, it was a non-negotiable. So that's why I did it. I do not learn for fun about stuff like that. But
yeah, but if you were like, hey, just take this test out of the pure enjoyment of just learning about it, like,
yeah. Well, when we were talking about this segment about our support systems, I asked John last night, I was like, what are the fun parts or the cool parts or the interesting parts of dating someone with ADHD? And one of the things that he said was getting to learn about like random shit that I hyper focus on for a couple weeks. Like the time that like I data dumped everything that their could ever be known about every bear species, because I had like a 3-week hyper focus on bears, and it only ended because I watched the very last documentary that was available across all streaming platforms. But then I'm like over it and I forget about it and I'm on to the next thing. 3 weeks is a really long time for me to hyper focus on something. I got obsessed with bats in October this year for like 2 days.
Frickin' bats.
Freaking bats. But
like
that stuff is super fun. And I love learning about psychology and sales and stuff. But like what I regret most, so it's interesting as an ADHD person, because I memorized my way through all of school, kindergarten through college. Like I didn't graduate college, but all of that was all memorized so I can get past the test. And then it was all gone. One of my biggest regrets, I literally just talked to John about this yesterday, is I wish that I knew more about history. That was our pillow talk last night. I was like, okay, so whenever we were
history.
Yeah. I was like, whenever we were Neanderthals, how many years was that until we were like in like Roman Empire? And then after that, how long was it till we were like Western settlers? And I was like, talk to me about history.
You would love the softcore history podcast, Shay.
But you didn't enjoy history when you were, because I was the same way. I never enjoyed history when I was in school. I was like, why? This is pointless. I am bored. I'm falling asleep.
Because history had the meanest teachers. That's why.
Well,
it was always like the teachers that had like a vendetta against.
Weren't you like a history
like you're an
major?
adult? No, I was who was
I think it's so fucking interesting.
Daniel, wasn't someone somebody that we went at door to door con with is history major, and I was like, ew. Like I would have never thought to do that.
It's really cool. And I wish that like that's an interesting aspect of ADHD where I'm like, I wish that I had a hold on this earlier, because I wish that I knew, as my pupils were learning and retain, like John knew every answer to the questions I asked him. I'm like, how do you know this? And he's
about bears?
He's like, because I listened in school, girly. I'm like, oh yeah.
And the only reason I even listened to any factual information about the Revolutionary War in 5th grade was because if you got past these levels, you got an extra scoop of ice cream at the social.
Oh, see, that's the reward thing in our
I would never have cared otherwise.
Yeah.
Anyway. Which is why these kind of jobs are perfect for me, because they're like, if you do this, then you get, this is the carrot, you get a trip at the end. And I'm like, ooh.
Yeah. My thing is recognition. I want people to know who I am, and I want people to be like, holy shit, Shay Wisdom's like badass. And I'm like,
sorry.
Yeah, that's where I get that's my carrot, is recognition. For sure.
Not allowed to chew and record at the same time, because he's gonna
our poor neurodivergent listeners right now are gonna be like losing their minds, because I'm over here just like, oh my god, she's not my child. I can't yell at her. She's not my kid. I can't say anything.
Wait, do you not like ASMR?
No, man.
Oh, you don't like it.
It's almost textural to me. Like,
I hope Nick Padilla listens to this at some point, but one of the guys I work with, I'm not going to call him my rep because he's my partner. Like in work, he's my partner, but I've been telling him about our podcast, and Lindsay's met him a bunch of times now, but I've been telling him about our podcast and just telling him like just certain things, because he knows me now. Like he, even as a work partner, has had to come to understand me, even to work well with me. Like, don't work with me at all if you don't want to understand me, because you're going to end up hating me. But basically, like, he started to notice, like, he's dating right now, and he's like, oh yeah, this girl was like, I think she was trying to be like cute, but she was like rubbing my arm in the same spot for like a while, and I was like, do you mind, like, not? And I'm like, you might have a little bit of and then we were talking about sand, like when I first moved to the beach, and everyone was like, just accept the sand, you live on the beach. And I'm like laying in my bed trying to sleep, and I'm like, there's sand in my bed. But he gets the same way about like sand, dirt. Like when we were camping, or when we went to the Narrows hike, Lindsay, and we had to put our shoes back on after we were like in the water.
Oh.
And I don't even think about that stuff anymore, because I just don't even care anymore. But like, that's my OCD, like being able to suppress my OCD, where I'm just like able to not be bothered by it. But back in the day, it would have ruined my entire day to have to put my socks on my slightly wet feet. Like I would have just been like, can't do it.
Dude, if I'm in socks and
Extra
I step in
socks.
wetness, everybody in the house is in trouble. I'm immediately pissed. Immediately. This is
But
one of the things too I wanted to mention about like being overstimulated and like our support systems. Because like a lot of times if Steve notices that I'm like agitated for no reason, I'm just overstimulated. And I've like learned to be like, hey, I'm just overstimulated. Like let me
Yeah.
just be like grumpy or whatever. Like
Yeah.
sometimes if he feels like there's nothing he can do, he'll just like start vacuuming or like cleaning something. Like it just like he'll throw in a load of laundry.
so that you can't yell at him.
He's just like
Can't yell
silently,
at
he's
him.
like
You're like,
it helps.
he's
Like
like,
immediately I feel better.
he's like, you penguin over there. I'm gonna clean the dishes over here, and then we'll be
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, or he'll like when I get like stuck in a loop sometimes, like I'll be like in the kitchen, I'll have like the water running, the fridge is open,
So-
and I'm like in the mudroom, like doing some or like whatever. He'll just like pop in and be like, "What are we doing here?"
I
And
think
that's
I
like my
changed.
like back to earth moment where I'm just like, "What are we doing? What are we doing? I don't know."
I'm starting to think about the because Kai always makes fun of me that I go like this during concerts, like as a dance move. Is
Oh, yeah,
that
that's-
penguining?
Frankenstein.
Yeah, he's like, your dance move. And I'm like, I'm not dancing. I'm just, but like
Vibing
I'll do
out.
that like when I'm just like trying to like stay busy, like if I'm in line or something. I don't know. I don't think anything of it. I just try and keep myself busy.
You know what? The last
Stimming, ma'am.
Lindsay's like, that's stimming, ma'am. And that makes sense because you're at a concert, it's loud, there's lasers, there's people.
She's putting her excess energy into places of her body because her brain can't just disperse it like a neurotypicals can.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Maybe just a little. Just a little. Do you know what I struggle with? And this is something that I'm finding is it might be just autism. But you guys tap in if you have this issue. But I'm talking about this in my therapy right now is emotional permanence. You guys know what object permanence is, right? So out of sight, out of mind, like thing doesn't exist if you're not looking at it. So my emotional connections develop that way. It takes me a long time of continued emotional connection to where I think about you when I'm not with you. There has to be like a very, very strong connection. Cause I'll even get sometimes when I'll like fly out for 48 hours where I'll get home and I'll realize, oh man, I didn't talk to any of my kids while I was gone. But it's because they're the same. Like they don't need to be on the phone. They don't need to have the like, we're good. See you, like we'll reconnect emotionally when I see you. And I have found that that has caused me so many issues throughout my life in building relationships. So anybody out there that's watching this that knows me, that has known me in the past, if you feel like you were directly affected by this problem of mine, I'm so sorry.
If you feel you were personally victimized by Lindsay Erickson's lack of need to connect with you,
might be entitled
to be connected with you.
If you've ever been upset because
nobody's gonna pay you.
I didn't want to give you a hug.
Well, and I'm not going to bring, like, obviously you grow and you develop into a more mature person, but that explains like my first 5 serious relationships where like I, for example, had to go to the Peace Corps and we stayed dating and he's like, you don't miss me? And I'm like, I haven't seen you in like 6 months. I don't even remember what you look like.
I'm not good on my time awareness. That's about it.
And all like, I can chameleon like into like, you drop me in the middle of a place with nobody I know, and I live there now. Like every time. It could be literally Vietnam where no one knows my name. And I basically am a local by like day 2. Like don't remember anything else that happens out on the outside world. Like the simulation has completely switched from under the, like even when I went to Thailand, I didn't talk to my parents. Like, don't you miss us? And I'm like, well, yeah, but like, completely
like, you know that, right?
So that
the inverse of that is where you have like the permanence is where you have emotional attachment to inanimate objects.
Oh,
and I have that too. I have a blankie.
I have that with my hanging.
Yeah, if you guys know me and my baseball caps, man.
Yeah,
I lose one of those. Holy shit!
Yeah, and you even prefer the old one
until it fits the seam.
Yeah, you like prefer your old hat over the new hat, which is fun.
Yes, I am exactly like that. And like when you were talking about that girl rubbing your arm, if John's trying to be like affectionate, this is gonna make sense. And he like tries to rub my arm. I'm like, no, please don't do that. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. I do not like being lightly touched. It makes me want to fucking punch something.
Yeah, that's
anyway,
I think what happened to him.
If I touch something like lightly, I'll go back and like squeeze it hard because I'm like, it's probably itching. Like I swear to God, I swear on my life, and I'll squeeze it or like scratch it or rub it. And I'm like, I'm sorry that I tickled you. That's insane.
Yeah, but like
I don't know if that's insane.
He's trying to regulate their nervous systems for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's
I used to do it with my stuffed animal when I was a kid.
All of my stuffed animals are named, and I basically still to this day think that the Toy Story is absolutely real, and that my penguin is pissed because I've had him in my closet on the top shelf instead of in my bed with me where he belongs, but I'm just protecting him from Osiris.
But literally though, I didn't even
sorry,
think about
Mr.
that, but
Penguin.
That's her dog, by the way, everybody.
I've had this
Osiris is my dog.
I've had this same baby blanket since I was a baby. I was wrapped in it. Asked my mom, this green blanket. If you see me, it's like waffle pattern, which I love waffle now in clothes and blankets, whatever. But it's this waffle blanket, and I used to think it was alive. Like that's why it's still in such good shape, because I would like treat it like it was like a live object. And I am like this boss ass bitch, like taking these business trips like to Hawaii, like with my carry-on, with my blanket in there. And I'm like,
yeah, that's how the same is with my penguin pillow pet, Mr. Penguin.
Like, don't you get homesick? I'm like, not as long as this blankie's here.
Yeah. Penguin's been to Israel with me as an adult. Penguin's been to Europe with me as an adult. Penguin is very well traveled.
So on that note, we just wrapped that for all of you out there listening. If you just felt yourself in either of those two things we were just talking about, that was our social proofing for this episode. There you have it. If you have an inanimate object that you are still attached to as an adult, drop it in the comments. We want to know what it is. Don't leave us out here being vulnerable alone. Thank you very much. We love you all. That would be wrapping our Yappy Hour for this week. Please make sure you hop over to our social medias, share the episode, follow us directly. We love you all for taking the time to unmask and dissociate in dialogue with us for the last 20 some odd minutes. Ladies, as always, it's been a pleasure.
Good night and good luck.